So yesterday, Attorney General Pam Bondi testified before the House Judiciary Committee for over 5 hours, her first appearance since the DOJ's release of more than 3 million pages of case documents. And Florida Congressman Jared Moskowitz used his 5 minutes to deliver what might be the single most comprehensive takedown of the administration's file suppression that anyone has put on the congressional record. He names names, cites dates, connects every dot from the initial file suppression to the Massie petition to force a vote, to Kash Patel's contradicted testimony, to Howard Lutnick's island visit, and her only response is to scold him for holding up a Trump Bible. You already know the drill. Let's watch this hearing, and I'll have a breakdown later in the video.
Several UCs as receipts. I'd like to have unanimous consent to introduce the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, dated September 25th, 25.
Objection.
The Bondi Department of Justice memo dated December 4th, 2025.
Objection.
An article from Newsweek entitled DOJ Deletes Study Alleging Rise in Far-Right Terrorism dated September 18th, 2025.
Without objection.
Notice article from October 3rd, 2025. Trump's directive on organized political violence could lead to increased surveillance of his critics.
Without objection.
Washington Post article, September 25th, 2025. Trump targets domestic terrorists, but only mentions the radical left.
Without objection.
Idaho Capital Sun, October 18th, 2025. Rest easy, Idahoans. The No King demonstrators are American patriots.
Without objection.
Attacks on freedom of speech, what nonprofits need to know, published by the National Council of Nonprofits, the largest network of nonprofits in America.
Without objection.
The Freedom from Religious Foundation warns that Bondi memo weaponizes federal law enforcement against non-Christians and dissenting viewpoints.
Without objection.
A Ken Klipperstein blog from January 28th, 26, ICE's secret watch lists of Americans.
Without objection.
And an Intercept article from February 2nd, 26, Trump calls his enemies terrorists. Does that mean he can kill them?
Without objection. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney General Bondi.
Good afternoon.
Oh, you're right. Good afternoon. It's been a long day. I wrote this morning. We've known each other a long time, and I'll always be appreciative for your assistance when you were Attorney General in Florida after the shooting at my high school at Marjory Stoneman Douglas in my hometown of Parkland when we passed a bipartisan bill, the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Act, which was the largest policy response to a school shooting in American history. Your department also prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law a constituent of mine and former felon that had plans to kill me when he was picked up by law enforcement after he was target practicing in his backyard with 2 rifles, a scope, a silencer, 3,000 rounds of ammunition, an anti-Semitic manifesto. My name was the only name on their target list, and my kids found out about this from their friends at school. So thank you. However, the most transparent administration in American history. Before Trump, we didn't know the word transparency, apparently. It's been 12 months since you gave Republican influencers part 1 of the Epstein Files. You said the list was on your desk. Then a memo came out and said that there was no list. Phase 2 of the binders never happened. The President of the United States says the Epstein thing is a hoax. He blasts his own base for wanting the release of the files. He blamed Barack Obama. Republicans voted against the release of the files in the Rules Committee. Then they refused to even return to the Rules Committee until they could be protected from future votes on the release. Speaker Johnson sends Congress home a day early before break. They sent the Deputy Attorney General to meet with Maxwell. She says something favorable about the president. Miraculously, she gets transferred to a minimum security facility. No one can explain why. Miraculously, the leaks to the Wall Street Journal stop. We come back from break. We have the Massie discharge petition. Republicans drop a rule, a non-binding resolution trying to kill the Massie discharge petition. The White House says passing the Massie discharge petition is a hostile act. Trying to stop the necessary 218 signatures, according to Republican members that signed it, the White House brought them into the Situation Room, you know, the place where the president goes for time of war, promising things like appropriations or maybe even to primary them. People in the room say you were there. It didn't work. We get the 218 signatures. We eventually passed the Massie petition. You guys didn't release the files. You were forced by Congress. Every member of the House except one and the entire Senate. The reason the president signed it is because it was a veto-proof majority. We can't agree on anything, and yet the entire House but one member and the whole Senate forced the administration to release the files. Kash Patel under oath said to Senator Kennedy, "The FBI is not in possession of any credible evidence that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone but himself." We know now that's not true. According to documents, Epstein had a worldwide sex trafficking ring. Girls from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Russia, Paris, modeling agencies sending him girls. He even had a relationship with a summer camp where he groomed girls at a picnic table. Ghislaine Maxwell says 29 Epstein associates cut secret DOJ deals. Turns out there is a list. 6 names readily available if you unredact them. Co-conspirators named, but we got them when you unredact them. Maxwell recently tells a House Oversight Committee that she wants clemency to release more names. Kash Patel under oath said Trump's name appears less than 100 times in the files. We now know that's not true. Trump's name appears more times in the Epstein files than God's name appears in the book about God. Okay, by the way, this is the Trump Bible. Move over, King James. Trump's name also appears more times in the Epstein file than Harry Potter's name appears in the 7 books about Harry Potter. Lutnick says that in 2008, he went to Epstein's home, says he had a massage table in the living room, that Epstein said he got one every day, that it was the right type of massage. He and his wife decide to leave and say they'll never be in a room with him again. Howard then says, "I'm sure the Epstein stuff is all on video. He was the greatest blackmailer of all time." Well, how would Howard know that? But now the files are public, and in 2012, we find out that he and his family are on Epstein Island after Epstein pled guilty to state charges. I'm from Florida. I take my family to Disney World, not to Epstein Island. There are documents in the files that dispute the president's claim that he kicked Epstein out of his club. Allegedly, the president said that he asked Epstein to leave. Supported now, that's disputed, though, statements from the manager of the club. Now, Madam Attorney General, I have like 25 seconds left. So because I'm curious, and I'd like to see, flip to the Jared Moskowitz section of the binder. I'm interested to see what staff provided on the oppo on me, and because we're in the Olympics, I'm going to give it a grade. I just want to see how good it is. So give me your best one.
So first of all, nothing is funny about mocking the Bible and holding up a Trump Bible. That's what you did. You made a joke, and I find offense to that. That's all I have to say.
I want it from the burn book.
Shame.
I want it from the burn book, which is the best one. What you got?
Has expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Yeah. If you're sitting there thinking, did she really just respond to a 5-minute takedown of a document concealment by scolding a congressman about a Bible? Yes, that's exactly what happened. And your instinct that this is extraordinary is completely correct. But here's what you need to know about what Moskowitz laid out, because the details that have come out in just the last 72 hours make this even worse than it already sounds. According to CNN's analysis of the files published this week, Trump's name appears more than 1,000 times in the case documents, and according to Representative Jamie Raskin, who searched the full uncensored files on Monday, a search for Trump's name returned results more than 1 million times. That's the same files where FBI Director Kash Patel testified to Senator John Kennedy in September that Trump's name appeared fewer than 100 times. When Kennedy asked if it was 1,000, Patel said no. When he asked 500, Patel said no. When he asked 100, Patel said, "I don't know the number, but it's not that. It was, with respect, very much that. And it gets worse." Patel also told the Senate under oath that there was no credible information, none that the individual at the center of this case helped cause harm to anyone other than by himself. But according to reporting from the Daily Beast, after Representative Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna reviewed the uncensored files this week, they identified at least 6 men whose names had been blacked out who were likely connected to crimes. Massie, himself a Republican, by the way, posted that the FBI's own 2019 documents listed billionaire Les Wexner as involved in crimes against young people. So when Patel said there was no credible information, the FBI's own files appear to say otherwise. Then there's the Lutnick situation. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick told a podcast last year he was so disturbed by a 2005 visit to the apartment in question that he vowed to never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. Lutnick confirmed under oath this Tuesday that he and his entire family had lunch on the private island in December 2012, 7 years after his supposed wake-up moment, and 4 years after the guilty plea in the state case involving a young person. And CBS News reported that emails show Lutnick continued exchanging messages as recently as 2018 and signed a joint business deal 4 days after that island lunch. And here's the detail that may be the most alarming of all. After the hearing, photographs taken by Reuters captured what was in her binder. One page was labeled Jayapal Pramila Search History, listing the exact case files that Democratic Representative Pramila Jayapal had searched in the DOJ's secure reading room just 2 days earlier. According to CBS News, the DOJ had set up 4 computers in a small room, required unique logins for each member, and barred phones. Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican, confirmed on social media that the DOJ was tracking every document that members of Congress searched, opened, and reviewed, complete with timestamps. Representative Raskin has now asked the DOJ's internal watchdog to investigate what he called an outrageous abuse of power. As Jayapal herself put it, is this the whole reason they opened the files up to us 2 days early? So they could essentially monitor members to see what we were going to ask her about? So what the Attorney General brought to a hearing about a case concealment was not evidence, not a plan to investigate those named in the files, not an apology to the survivors who were sitting right behind her, every single one of whom raised their hand when asked if the DOJ had denied or ignored their attempts to provide testimony. What she brought was an opposition research binder filled with personalized attacks on Democrats and what appears to be tracked activity from their job of investigating the DOJ. And when a congressman laid all of this out in 5 minutes flat, her response was, "Nothing is funny about mocking the Bible." That's the whole strategy. Don't answer the question, attack the questioner, and hope nobody notices that you're protecting the people the files actually point to. So what does this actually mean for you, the person watching this? It means the Department of Justice, the agency that is supposed to be the last line of defense for accountability in this country, is operating as a personal protection service for the politically connected. They blacked out the names of those allegedly involved while accidentally publishing the names and addresses of 32 survivors. Imagine your bank accidentally emailing your personal information to the entire internet, but carefully protecting the identity of the guy who compromised your account. According to NPR's reporting, the DOJ exposed survivors' personal information for the first time. Some families didn't even know their loved ones had been affected until her department published their names. On an institutional level, the DOJ spying on how members of Congress do their jobs isn't some small technicality. It breaks the basic rule that says the government can't investigate the people investigating it. As Raskin's statement put it, the DOJ required members to use government-controlled computers and software, then logged every document they reviewed, apparently to prepare the Attorney General to deflect their questions. Georgia Representative Hank Johnson said it plainly. The monitoring apparatus has extended to the top of the Justice Department. In other words, the spying goes all the way to the top. If the executive branch is tracking how the legislative branch investigates it, that's not oversight, that's interference in a nicer font. And for what? What's the point of all this? Not justice for survivors. They can't even get a meeting. Not transparency. The administration fought the release at every single step until an overwhelming majority of Congress that couldn't be blocked forced them. Not law enforcement. The FBI director testified under oath that there was no evidence of harm caused to others, and the files appear to directly clash with that. This is about protecting the president and his associates from the contents of files that his own administration promised to release. Trump ran on releasing these case files. He called it a priority. And then his name turned up in them far more than anyone expected, and suddenly it became a hoax and a hostile act to release them. That's not a policy reversal, that's an admission. It's worth noting what Republican Representative Thomas Massie, the co-author of the law designed to force the release of these files, said directly to her during this same hearing. According to Axios, Massie told her, "This concealment spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it." He also said the DOJ did, quote, "literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, exposing their identities while protecting those allegedly involved." And after the hearing, Massie posted on social media that her staff literally gave her flashcards with individualized insults, but she couldn't memorize them. So you can see her shuffle through them to find the flashcard insult that matches the member. That's a Republican saying that. When you've lost the guy who forced the vote to release the files, you haven't just lost the plot, you've lost the entire library. So here's where things stand. She has testified, answered virtually nothing, and is now facing calls from Raskin for an internal watchdog investigation into the DOJ's monitoring of lawmakers. Lutnick has admitted to visiting the private island after years of saying he cut off all contact. Patel's testimony about Trump's name and the evidence of harm has been directly clashed with by the very files he was supposed to have reviewed, and the survivors are still waiting for a meeting. This isn't a left versus right thing. Every member of the House except one voted to release these files. The entire Senate voted to release these files. This is about whether the Department of Justice exists to pursue justice or to protect the people who need justice pursued against them. And right now, The answer to that question is sitting in a binder full of flashcard insults and congressional search histories. Here's the thing, Moskowitz understood that she is hoping you won't. You don't bring an opposition research binder to a hearing about crimes against young people unless you've already decided you're not there to find the truth. And you definitely don't take your family to a private island owned by a convicted individual and call it a vacation. I take my family to Disney World, not to a place under federal inquiry with a lunch reservation. If you want the truth to come out and real accountability to happen, don't just watch this, get involved. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, so your voice is part of the conversation. Click the bell icon so you never miss the breakdowns and updates, the mainstream headlines skip, and most importantly, share this video and subscribe so more people see what's really going on.